Welcome back to another edition of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast powered by DeerCast. I am your co-host, Matt Drury, and this is a special 2024 recap edition. We're going to go through the highs, the lows, the funniest parts, the hottest topics, and we're giving them to you all right here, right now. You're going to want to tune in for this one. Hope you all enjoy, and Happy New Year. Let's go.
Stand clear.
100% Wild podcast. So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast brought to you by DeerCast. I'm Matt Drury, your co-host. That is Tim Chelsvik. It's a new year.
2024.
It's a new me.
We're in the is it?
We're going to kill something.
Defend yourself against the coming zombie apocalypse with the 6-inch modified cleaver blade of the Cold Steel Mayhem.
Jeez, Tim.
Bad boy.
Hey, trying to compensate for something? It's not always about the size of the blade.
This is by far going to be the top archery velvet deer as of now. And definitely by far going to be the top youth velvet buck. Now, they don't have a category for scoring for that as of yet. Hopefully they will by the time next year rolls around. And I would say right now, I think he's waning in the top 2, top 3 for the whole state overall for archery. I will go ahead and say right off the bat, my kid is 10 years old. He does shoot a normal compound bow, and he's a total badass, and he gets it done, and he's practicing real hard. But the morning that we got to go out and harvest this deer, and we were so blessed to be able to do so, he said, I think I'm going to take my real bow. I said, like hell, you're not. We're taking that crossbow because you get one shot at the deer like this. Yeah. And we're hunting tight quarters. You get one shot or it's going to be over. And so he understood. So, and you know what? Hey, a harvest is a harvest no matter what you're getting it with. And as long as you're doing it the right way, I'm all for it. So Same. I'm the kind of guy when gun season rolls around, I'm ready to get a rifle in my hand. But so the bottom line is we've been watching this deer for 2 years now. And I always say I've been growing this deer like we all talk about, right? Yeah. I've been growing this deer, Well, the deer's been growing himself. Last year, he was a mid 140s at best. And he blew up into a 190 7/8 deer over the last year. I don't know if that's the mineral content in the soil, if it's the constant consistency of the trophy rocks and the tiny little food plots that I planted for him. And man, it's just really as simple as this. I run those cameras that come to my phone all the time. So we're watching this stuff in real time, right? And about June-ish, May, June, Jesse saw him on camera because I got the app logged onto his phone too. So he comes home from school and he gets his phone and he goes, "Oh, Dad, you gotta let me shoot this deer." And of course, I look at it and I go, "Crap, man, that's the deer I've been saving for myself for 2 years, right? I've been waiting on him to get right." And he's 5 years. Excuse me, he's like 5-6 years old this year. I think 5, probably conservatively speaking. But man, when you got a kid who loves to do the hunting and fishing like my kid does. And I've got 4 awesome kids, but Jesse's really my hunting and fishing guy. When you got somebody who loves it like he does, I'm not going to steal that joy from him. And it's not about me anymore. And as a dad, I can tell you, and a lot of fathers out there will understand, I don't know. I don't even have that in my heart anymore. It doesn't, watching him take that buck down and get so blessed to do it in such a short amount of time before school, by the way, on a school day,
even better.
That's a God thing through and through. And those moments are to be celebrated. And I'll tell you, it was one of the greatest hunting moments of my life. It was as if it was as if I'm the one who harvested the deer myself. And I just couldn't be more grateful. And so the bottom line is he came into a small food plot with a trophy rock that I've literally refreshed a new trophy rock over the last 3 years. So there's a dip in the ground, a hole in the ground. And when it gets to this time of year, because you can't bait in Tennessee, I go in and get the crushed kind. So at least they have something they could palatably eat or chew, the deer, if they're going to do it at all. Well, it turns out a couple of the does and that deer and another smaller buck, they were eating those little pebble trophy rocks. So they're just eating straight salt. We've been in kind of a drought, so I don't know what that means. I figured they'd be off of it and trying to get to water.
I was going to ask, is that an excused absence day then for Jesse?
I would have not gone to school.
He shot the deer at 7:22. I want to say it was 7:22, I think. So he wasn't late at all. Or maybe it was a little earlier than that. But anyway, the point is I got into school, and I like to look back at my harvest log. But anyway, I got into school and he wasn't absent or anything. And we took the deer to the taxidermist and the whole deal. Like we did everything in one swoop before we went to school. So he went to school. And if anybody said, what'd you do today? That's what he said. Well, I just shot a 190-inch deer, with my dad.
So it is just breaking daylight at this point that I am sitting in my actual stand. I mean, I barely squeak in there. I didn't spook anything. I didn't hear anything blow. I didn't hear anything take off. So I'm thinking, okay, I made it. I got to the tree. I could barely feel a little light breeze coming on my face. And I was like, okay, I got the same exact wind that I need for this to work. And let's just see what happens here. And so I'm sitting there, it's just breaking daylight, and 10 or 15 minutes passes into the hunt, and I can hear a farmer yelling at his cows, not far off from where I'm at. I can hear him just screaming at these cattle, hey cows, hey cows. And he's going in to feed his cattle for the morning. And I'm thinking, wow, this is just perfect. The icing on the cake to taking off work and this whole morning hunt thing working out. Ruined. The early October morning hunts are everybody says not to hunt them, or so you read. And this is exactly why. So I hear this guy kind of screaming at his cows not far off, and a couple does come rushing through. I think 2 or 3 does came through, and they're kind of trotting through nervously through this little field edge, and they take off. And I'm kind of like, wow, that might be the morning hunt right there. That might be all I see today is a couple does spooked off from a guy going to feed his cattle for the morning. And this is how my morning's going to go. And 10 minutes goes by, and I see a couple other deer coming through the same area, same trail. I'd already arranged the first group that it came through, around 30-ish yards. And I see a couple more does coming, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's not over. So I see these does come through, and I hadn't picked up my bow at this point at any point in the morning since I got the stand. And I'm thinking, okay, I might want to pick up my bow because he might be behind these deer. He might be getting spooked off these fields and coming in. I want to be ready as fast as they're trotting. So I pick up my bow, and as soon as I touch my bow, I go, I better kind of lean forward and look around this autumn olive bush that's next to me, just in case he's coming around the corner. I want to be able to draw and have a shot at this deer. So I peek my head forward, and I look over, and I just see part of his tine, and I go, "Oh my gosh, he's coming! It's him. He's 30 yards, and he's trotting through." So I draw back, I get a full draw, and he steps into kind of the area that I can shoot, and I start to kind of grunt at him, give him a couple of meh, and he's not stopping for anything. He's hearing this guy, yelling at his cows over in the next field, and this thing's heading for cover and getting to where he feels safe. And I finally realized, hey, you're going to have to yell at this deer if you want a shot at him. So I just yell, hey, just almost as loud as I can. Not super loud, but pretty loud for deer hunting. And I yell, hey. And he just stopped on the hoof and looked right at me. And he was just completely broadside. And as soon as it settled on him, I was so calm. I can't believe how calm I was shooting this deer. I just rested the pin there as soon as he stopped and let it fly, and kind of blacked out at that second as soon as the arrow let off. So, that was.
Don't you think some of your, you're a sniper in the service, your training takes hold there a little bit? I know it's totally different things, but I would think that moment of truth, you're used to, being calm, right? I would think you'd have to tell me.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say because that first encounter, I look back and I see that rack coming my way, and my heart's racing immediately at that point. And, leading up to that 60-ish yard shot that first evening, I was kind of a little nervous shooting on that at that point. But I think just because everything was so rushed at this point, it was just so easy to kind of settle in and say, hey, you just need to get this done. It's now or never type of moment. So it was pretty easy to kind of settle in.
Here's the difference then. The second time, there was no time to think about it. It happened, boom, boom, boom. And I probably muscle memory and training takes over a little bit.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So I black out as soon as as soon as I let go of the release, kind of black out for a second. And I kind of come to as soon as I see the arrow impact, and I could see it's a little bit back, but I could tell, hey, I think I got some ribs there, and I think it might be an okay shot. He hunches up like a cat, turns exactly around the way he just came in, and runs off. And immediately my heart just starts going crazy. I mean, it's going off the hook, and I'm like, holy cow, I just shot him, and I think I got him. And I pick up the phone, I look at my phone, and it's like 7:30, 7:32 at this point, and I immediately go, oh my gosh, my wife's getting ready for work right now. So I call her within less than a minute after shooting this deer, and I go, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe it, I got that deer I'm after. And she's like, oh, no way, you got him. And, I'm so happy. Hopefully, you recover it. And, we're having a great phone call. And she's like, send me some text updates. And my phone's on like 4% at this point. Oh boy. So, cause I didn't charge it the night before. Yeah. So get off the phone with her. I'm just kind of sitting and standing. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I got that deer. And hopefully the recovery goes well. And I get on some blood, and I text a couple family members. Hey, I think I just shot that deer, and looks like an okay shot. I'm going to give it some time. And so I just kind of sit there for a while and kind of bask in the moment a little bit, and, let the sun get up a little bit, and just give him some time.
Okay. So how long did you give him then? If you think it might be a touchback, but an okay, decent shot, how long did you give him before you go to look for blood?
So I sat in the stand probably, I would say 30 to 40 minutes before I actually got down. I slowly pack up my things. I put my quiver, I shoot with my quiver off. I know sometimes that's a big debate. Yeah. I shoot quiver off. That's just how I roll. That works for me. Some people shoot quiver on. I shoot quiver off. Yeah. I put my quiver back on. Pack up my stuff. Pack up my stand. I'm putting it. I'm going as slow as possible because I'm so eager to go check out the blood and see what the arrow looks like and see if it really was a good shot or not. But I'm like, really, really take your time here. It's a good deer. And I slowly pack up my stuff. I get the stand all packed up, and I've got, a big backpack that I usually wear, my stand, my sticks, and then my bow. And I'm like, you know what? Let's really take my time here. And, let's do the shortcut back to, there's a main county road that runs next to this piece. It's a little bit closer than the parking lot is. So I go, let's just walk all my heavy stuff back to this county road. I'll kind of set it along the roadside there in the brush, and I won't have to walk at the 1.5 miles back to the parking lot. Yeah. And it'll kind of kill a little bit more time. So by this point, I do one trip to the county road. I drop off, I think at that point, I dropped off my backpack and came back with my bow, and I come back and grab my stand and my sticks, and I start walking back this county road, and I'm thinking, hey, that deer kind of ran this way. I should really start looking for blood as I walk back to this roadway, and I should really be looking for this deer in case, it wasn't a good shot and I don't want to jump him or spook him. Yeah. And maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, I start walking, and I find just a little piece of lung just sitting there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he did come through here. And it wasn't very far off from where I shot him. And it was kind of around the water source. I'm like, well, you might have came around this water source. So I really didn't even blood trail the deer, essentially. I find this little piece of lung. I could see a little stream of blood going 2 ways. I'm looking left, looking right. And I'm like, I don't know which way he went, or which way he was coming or going, but it's going towards this water source that I'm hunting around. He could have went around this water source, and I'm hoping that he's close. And I maybe took 10 or so steps, and I'm going kind of around there's tall phragmite around all these water sources where I'm hunting. And, anybody that's hunting around phragmite, it's like that stuff gets like 12 foot tall, and it's thick and it's nasty, and it's kind of hard to navigate through. But I'm thinking, he might have laid down around this water source somewhere if he's running towards water. And I took maybe 10 steps, and I could just see his white stomach already there. And I just thought, oh my gosh, he's right here. He didn't go very far at all. He maybe went like 60 yards and just piled up. And so then I'm kind of like, holy cow, I cannot believe this happened. Like, I've already found the deer. I got him. I can't believe it all just came together. So I'm kind of like just dumbfounded that this all even happened.
The first bull came in to me. I thought the bull on my right was going to come in first. The bull on my left was really close. And so I'm set up on this bull all of a sudden to the left. And then surely, as it always happens, the bull on the right actually ended up stepping out first. Yeah. And so I could hear Clayton behind me saying, he's coming. And I didn't get a glimpse of him. I didn't know where he was, how far away he was. I knew I could hear him walking, But, when the wind is right, that can kind of sneak up on you a little bit. And he stepped out in the road 20 yards from me, broadside, and it was a big 300-inch bull. Not an incredibly old bull, but he's going to be really, really nice, which I wish I could say that's the reason I passed him. But as I'm drawing back, his head's turned, so I would start to draw. And as I start to draw, he turns his head, busts me right away. As soon as he stepped out in the clearing, he busted me right away. So I'm thinking, well, daggum, there goes our hunt, and we'll just keep moving on. I mean, it's been so quick. I'm like, I'm not that disappointed about it because it happened so fast. Mm-hmm. Well, as soon as he runs off, this other bull, he heard the run-in or whatever it was, and he beelined it straight to me. And we have just the best footage, man, of that hunt. Aaron Bennett on the camera right behind me. Like you said, we've been a great duo before. But he's got this perfect over-the-shoulder shot of this bull. He gets 18 yards from me, and he's in full bugle, all on camera.
Yeah.
And he's a really nice 6x6. I think, he's going to score just under 300. Not like one of the big, giant trophies, but still an incredible hunt, incredible trophy for me. And as he gets so close, he finally looks up and he sees us. But he doesn't know what we are, I guess. And so he runs away. Clayton hits the cow call and he stops. And as he bolts away, in the whitetail, this is where the experience kind of helped me. As soon as they run away, there's that time where they might come back and check what you are. Mm-hmm. So I go to full draw, and as soon as he hits that cow call, he stops, turns around, gives me about 2 seconds to get a shot on him, and I pull back real quick and find him in the scope in the peat. The thing was, here was the kicker. As that bull was walking up to me, I had all this time to kind of think about all the different things. I thought that bull was going to step out at 45 yards. So I had my sight set at 45. Okay. So I know as he's getting closer, okay, I'm going to have to adjust where I've got this sight set. And as he turns to run away, I pull back and I just find about 4 or 5 inches below where I would have shot. And I'm just waiting for Aaron to give me the kill call, and he goes, kill him. And as soon as he says it, I let the arrow fly.
He says, and Adam let it rip.
As they check, if they don't see what they're looking for, they're going to bolt right after that. So I knew I had to make a quick shot. Luckily, we were able to make a very good shot. And man, that footage, the blood coming out from that new NAP Killzone 2.0, it was crazy.
It was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a blood trail like quite at the hit. Like I've seen some pretty good ones over the years, but that was literally like a bucket of paint was just pouring out.
Well, what I didn't understand was it looked like that was lung area where the hit was, but it bled like there was an artery.
There had to be an artery there because of the way the pressure was. I mean, it was spitting out.
Well, Mark said when we text Mark Drury, Mark said you hit the aortic. I don't remember what kind of the aortic artery, basically. Yeah. And that's what it was.
The only thing I could come up with was go in Saturday afternoon at normal time to hunt and just stay.
Oh.
So that's what I did. I sat all night in the ground blind.
What kind of blind did you have set up, Ryan?
Just a soft-sided pop-up ground blind.
So what were the low temperatures that night?
No, that's one thing that was in my favor. It didn't get very cool. I mean, it's us having youth rifle weekend. I went in, just like a regular early season camo, and I had on the orange vest and a hat. And about dark, I did have to take the orange off and put on my hoodie, and then put the orange back on over it. It got a little bit too cool for the thin shirt, but no, it wasn't bad. And I mean, if you think it was a long night, you would be correct. It was a very long night, but I can't think back on any point through it all that I was just miserable or, regretting my decision.
What did your wife say?
But now about midnight, I had 16% phone battery, and I thought, the rest of the way is going to suck.
Yeah.
You planned everything pretty well except for that.
Except for the power. What did your wife say?
That wasn't one of my best laid plans, not having my phone fully charged, but it worked out. There was deer in and out of there all night long, and that really helped to keep me entertained. Bucks were sparring, I could hear that, and I heard a buck let out a big long grunt. Coons were really vocal with each other in there. I don't know if you've heard how vocal raccoons can be when they don't know you're around, but it's pretty entertaining. Screech owls, and it was entertaining. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm going to take up doing that very often, but if I had to do it again, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Did you get any sleep?
No, that's what, and everybody, of course, it's a little small town, and everybody said, "Man, I heard you slept in the blind." I said, "Well, you heard wrong because I didn't sleep. I sat in the blind, but I didn't sleep."
I sat quietly with my thoughts.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think I'd be scared.
Really? It's just like camping.
Yeah, well, you see me doing that a lot.
Mr. Eagle Scout himself.
Listen, I just don't think I would like it, is all I'm saying.
Well, I'm just thinking about the sheer practicality of it because most of those blinds, like,
Well, you probably sat in a chair the whole time, right? Did you lay down at all?
No. I stayed in my chair, and this where I had to be set up to hunt this deer. It's my blind is like it's sideways on the side of I'm from Kentucky. I'll go ahead and give you a disclaimer. We don't say hollows. That's something that ain't got nothing in the middle of it. We say hollows.
a holler, yeah.
So I was sitting on the side of the collar, and luckily the chair I had adjustable legs, and I had one side of the legs drew all the way up. The other side they were let all the way out, and then I had a rock under each one of them to keep me sitting level. But I mean, it was a comfortable chair. It had the armrest and everything, and anytime I would maybe start to nod off, I would jerk and wake myself up, or there wasn't any sleep that was had. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, had you thought about bringing a sleeping bag and just laying on the ground?
Well, what I was afraid of was how much noise I would make. If I tossed and turned and things like that. And I just, I'll be honest with you, comfort wasn't my top priority at the time. I wanted to be in there and be ready for that deer when the sun came up, and I was willing to sit there for whatever it ended up being, 14, 15 hours. I was pretty confident that it was going to work. The wind was perfect. I'm a scent control fanatic.
Yeah.
But I did keep in my mind that there's a chance you may go in here and do this and come out with nothing. and I considered all that, but it paid off dividends.
Ryan, what'd your wife say when you said, see you tomorrow? I'm going to go sit in my blind all night? Nuts.
Well, it's funny, I've got a group of buddies that we talk about deer and we show each other pictures and stuff, but there's a lot of my family didn't even know about this deer. And I mean, obviously part of when you get a deer like this, you don't want to tell God and everybody. But I'll be honest with you, whenever I got his picture, I knew he was special. I'm really notorious to get hung up on one deer and obsessed over it. And I told myself when I first got his pictures, I'm going to hunt this deer like he's a 140-inch deer. Yeah. I'm not going to overthink it. And I didn't tell many people about it because I didn't want to talk about it. The more I, talk about it, the more I'm going to think about it. I didn't want to make it any bigger than it was. Because a lot of times when I start overthinking things, it's when it doesn't go very well. So, but I told my wife, I told my dad, and I told my brother-in-law what I was going to do the day before.
Honey,
my dad wasn't really surprised. I'll be honest with you. Neither was my brother-in-law. I don't think my wife was surprised, but when I first told her, she looked at me like I had two heads. And I said, listen, I know I can hunt as hard as I used to. We've got kids. We've got a busy life. I said, but I really think if I can do this, that I can get this knocked out and done. And she was very supportive of it. She stayed home with the kids all night, and she even checked on me. So she wasn't too upset. And that's I've got to thank her a lot too, because she's not a hunter. She has no interest in it whatsoever. But without her being on board or at least tolerating it, I couldn't have done it.
Here, I got a real important question. This is something that would concern me. What did you do for food?
Snacks.
Yeah, what was the snack situation? I'd have Firstborn protein sticks, protein bars. Yeah.
Well, I was powered on Red Bull and Sour Patch Kids.
Oh. That sounds like Scott.
Yeah, right.
He was Copenhagen and Monster.
Dip in there. Woo.
Yeah, I was running on caffeine and sugar, that's for sure.
And you said you couldn't sleep.
This is odd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, wonder why.
Okay, so fast forward. The sun's starting to come up. Did you set an alarm? I know your phone was dying, but did you set an alarm just in case you dozed off? That's sucked. What I would have been worried about. Like you stay up all night and finally that last hour you doze off,
Yeah, I set an alarm. I mean, it was on vibrate, but I put it, in my hoodie pocket. So maybe I would feel it. And I set it for like an hour ahead of when the sun would start trying to rise. That way, it doesn't buzz and scare me in the blind, and I jerk and, spook deer when they get in there about time for daylight. So I did do that, but I just when I looked at my phone and I knew I was 10 or 15 minutes shy of that going off, I just killed it because I hadn't been to sleep. So
Yeah. I'm up.
It's a long night.
We'll just keep at it. Yeah.
Okay, so sun starts coming up. Do you have deer around you already at that point, or what time do they start?
Yeah, there had been deer in and out, all night. That's like I said, that's probably why I never got tired very, very bad. Right after, the sun went down the afternoon before, deer had been in there, at last light. And when they moved out after about an hour, it started getting pretty monotonous. And that's when my eyelids started getting heavy. But then, the nighttime wave of deer started moving, and that my cell camera was, sending me pictures, and I was able to peek and look what was in the corn pile and see. And of course, I had to sit through him coming in overnight and being at 35 yards, and I could do nothing about it. And, being as tense as possible.
So he was in there?
Afraid that maybe he would smell me or something. And there was another pretty nice deer in there that I'm trying to get my nephew in front of, and he was there, and which I knew that would, happen.
So, what time was that? What time was that when the big deer showed up?
That would have been right around midnight, roughly, something like that.
And he's 35 yards from
and he was there he was 35 yards in the corn pile, eating just like a big heifer calf.
Let me ask you this. Did you put the one window up that you were going to shoot out of, did you put that up overnight just so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that up, and I mean, like I tell you, I do what most of you all probably do. I take care of my camouflage. I don't wear it until I get to where I'm going and take the showers. And my wife, I had to repeat myself so she understood what I really said. I told her actually this morning, I said, that I've not used scented body wash in over 2 months.
Yeah.
And she looked at me like I was, a skank or something. I said, no, I've washed, but I've not used scented body wash. I've not used scented deodorant. The only time I wore cologne was just a very little bit on my shirt for church on Sunday.
And it's Brute by
and then
Fabergé.
I use ozone, stuff, those products. And so I wasn't, I mean, you can never fully control a deer's nose, but I could go to sleep at night knowing I was doing all possible, at least.
Yeah. So, okay. So sun's coming. He was there at midnight, walks off. So, he's kind of in the area. And then sun comes up. How long before the first deer shows up, or were there just deer there at that point?
Yeah, there were some small bucks that had filtered in and left, and then some does. And that's the way, the sequence of pictures had always been. He would show up. He would be the last deer there, basically. And I don't know if he stood out from a distance and watched. I couldn't tell you. It's pretty thick in there. I could see a decent distance, but about the time it was, and I could see the edge of the bean field. It was probably 50 yards, 60 yards to my left, and it was, considerably daylight out there, very comfortably in the legal shooting light. Still, it was dim in the timber, but I had already, the deer that were there, I had looked at them through my crossbow scope just to be sure that, I was going to be able to see whenever he got there. And that was all no issue. And when they got gone, and I had leaned back and was, trying to get comfortable and just keep myself calm because I'm expecting this to happen just at any time, but trying to stay, gathered up too. And I leaned back in my chair, and I didn't, how big deer are. I don't understand how something that size can move and leaves without making any noise.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear him coming, and I looked up and I could see legs underneath the, the underbrush, and I knew what was fixing to happen. So I went ahead and got up and got in position. And he comes in, facing me head on naturally. And he stands there and eats for probably, it seemed like 6 hours, but it's probably 5 minutes. And
a long time.
He took a step. He stepped on out, and when he took his next step, he kind of turned broadside all in one move. From that point, pulled the shot off. I knew instantly I'd hit him good. And it's like I said, this is a rough hillside, and at one point it almost drops off, and he run over that, and I heard the deer crash, and I sat there for another several seconds, just to make sure I didn't hear anything else going on before I, came apart at the seams and was freaking out in the blind. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to get out of the blind, and I'm going to go see if there's blood right where I shot him, and I was going to be able to go to the edge of the hill and look kind of out into the creek bottom. And I said, if I can see him and I know he's dead, I'll go on. If I don't see him, I'm going to leave, go to church, and then after church, I'll come back. That would have been 5 or 6 hours. Mm-hmm. And I got there instantly, good blood, bubbles in it. I knew it was lung. And I got to the edge, and I was almost looking down at him. Maybe 50 yards. So, and even then, I stood for a second, just to watch him. But
yeah,
from the time I shot till the time I had, dad and brother-in-law and everybody like that, my brother on the phone, it was 5 or 6 minutes. It all happened just.
And finally, he breaks and starts walking. Walks up to 62 yards and goes and sticks his head all the way in the corn. I was like, there's no way he's walking through that corn and stuff. And so he goes in there and he just starts eating on a couple ears of corn. And luckily he only did that for about 3 to 4 minutes. Kind of didn't do much there. And finally, when he quits eating on the corn, he pretty well breaks and starts coming. And I'm sitting there looking at him. And I got 2 shots pretty well. For him to walk out of the draw, he's got to go either on the left side of me or he's got to go on the right side of me. Mm-hmm. And on the right side, it's going to be a little bit tougher. Like it's going to be about a 30-yard shot and he'll probably be the way he's coming. He'll be quartered to me a little hard. And so I was in my head, I was hoping he goes left of me and stuff, because then he's going to be like 25 yards, just ever so slightly quartered away and stuff. And I'm like really hoping he goes to the left and stuff. And when he breaks, he pretty well hugs that left side the whole time. And so I'm going to go ahead and get shifted a little bit and stuff, because I'm like, this is going to be my shot. And I've got a branch that sticks out down below me, kind of that we left for my cover for when a deer gets behind to be able to draw back on him. And so at this point, he's walking 45 yards and keeps walking, never really broke stride from when he stopped eating on the corn. And he's all the way at 30 yards. He finally gets behind the limbs there and stuff. And I draw back and he walks, he just keeps stride for stride. And we talked about it early, like whether I wanted to take a chance on trying to stop the deer at 20 or so yards and being that close of that old a deer and that caliber of deer to take my chances of stopping him, or do you just shoot him on the walk and stuff? And I've shot enough. I feel very confident shooting a deer on the walk at that distance and stuff. So we kind of talked about that, and I was like, I just don't think I'm going to stop him if I don't have to and stuff. Mm-hmm. And if he's just a nice steady walk. And so he keeps walking. I'm drawn back already. And finally his head just peeks out from behind that brush and he just stops and doesn't move. I'm like, oh God, here we go. He's going to try to do a standoff here. And so he has no clue, obviously, where I'm at this point. And he's just kind of licking himself. He would always bristle up and just would shake all the way out. And he's doing that there at 25 yards from me. And you can just hear him at that point. And there's a camera right in front of him and stuff. And I thought the whole time the camera was taking pictures of him. And I thought that's kind of what he was looking at. And so, but he stops and stuff, and I'm still full draw here. And I'm holding this thing back as long as I can, long enough, like I put my hand back behind my neck to try and hold it for whatever longer you could. And finally, at that point, I had held long enough that I'm like, I don't feel confident. Like I'm not going to make a great shot on him here if he starts walking. And he finally turns his head. So I let down with him at 25 yards. But then at that point, you're like, God, now I got to get this thing drawn back as soon as he starts taking a step. Yeah. And so he messes it around there for literally, like he's watching this other buck in the corn, never moves, just eating grass and licking himself off and stuff. Sits there for 5 to 8 minutes and never moves at 25 yards.
It's a lifetime.
And you can imagine what your nerves are doing at that point, like that close to him and stuff. And I was just kept waiting for him to put his nose up in the air and stuff, start licking his nose. I was like this close because the wind was not blowing at all. Stuff. I was just waiting for it to swirl one time and I was going to be in trouble. And luckily enough, I mean, he never did lick his nose off and stuff. And so he finally, I mean, after that 5 to 8 minutes, he starts taking a step and stuff. And I just pulled back, which I was sitting in a tree stand, put our tree stands high on purpose and stuff. So I'm way up there in the air and stuff. And I draw back and he doesn't notice anything. And he's just walking and stuff. And I just put it on his front shoulder and pretty well squeeze it off. And from the time I squeezed it off, I knew I hit just a little back from where I was wanting to hit and stuff. But at the same point, you're like, I just got an arrow in a 200 whatsoever deer and stuff. And
I went and re-statted it. I'm like, no, he's 250. I was just in shock. I mean, I never thought I would ever shoot a deer this big in my life.
How did the taxidermists respond? Because they see a ton of deer.
This guy actually hunts just a couple miles down the road from this place, funny enough. But he was in shock too. He's just like, this thing is absolutely incredible.
Wow.
Everybody that kills a big deer, they always say the same thing about when they're scoring it. It's like, we had to re-add it. Like,
it can't be right.
This can't be right. I remember Terry saying that on his 216 last year. It's like,
sure, yeah.
They re-added and rescored.
I would
and
do the
it's
same
like,
thing.
Holy crap, this deer is actually this big. It's crazy.
The other thing that I think you should savor, Chad, is the fact that your significant other cared.
Not all do.
Yeah.
There will come a day when that probably.
Are you married, Chad?
No, we're just dating. She actually, I took her out this past weekend and she shot at 162.
Holy crap.
We got a bunch of guys calling Chad to see if he's available.
Hi.
What? He's going to get catfished.
Are you seeing?
Yeah, I got it sitting right next to him.
Holy cow.
Dang.
Yeah, nice. You don't have the other one, do you?
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Okay,
I'll pick it up
you're
for
holding
sure.
out on us.
Tell.
What the hell?
Show and tell.
Hey, love to fit him in.
Oh,
Did
no.
our feed cut out? Okay, hold on. Let's see.
Whoa.
Okay, rotate that bad boy for us. Oh my goodness. Deer of a lifetime, man.
Matt, what would you do if you never seen that deer on camera, but you see him walking through the woods towards
Well,
you?
Tim, I'd be obviously calm and collected.
Like
I'd
the stone cold
just
killer
like
you are.
Mark.
Yep. Just another day in the
rattle,
office.
I'd grunt, and I'd snort wheeze him, and then I'd shoot him.
Little poop in your pants.
And then I realized I shot low and I missed him.
I'd send a warning shot first. Scream, let that be a lesson. Maybe try to stop him with
I like a challenge, Tim.
dramatics.
My entire life. We'll get into that in the next podcast.
I've got some dramatics to share too.
Well, Chad, I mean, this is unbelievable. I'm so happy for you. You're never going to kill another deer like this, and I think you probably know that. But who cares, right?
Yeah,
well,
never.
Chad, just to clarify, was this a permission
Nope.
farm that you were on?
Yes, it was a permission farm, and I should add that I'm extremely grateful for them to continue letting me hunt this farm. It's a farm that I grew up hunting, so
Okay.
I cut my teeth on this farm and really learned everything I know on it. So that's probably the most special thing to me is I watched my dad shoot a 182-inch deer off of it, watched that deer die.
Oh, cool.
Everything's there for it.
As much as people complain about money ruining whitetail hunting, there is still a lot of permission hunting happening.
And we've had a couple stories so far on these giant deer that it's been permission pieces. So.
Yeah. So don't if you're listening to this, don't let some of the hype and maybe the hyperbole get you down about not having a good place to go. It's if you put the effort out and just tell your friends like, hey, I'm looking for a place. Does anyone know anyone that's got some land? You never know.
Well, and it sounds like you guys have had this piece for a while. Obviously, you're good tenants, so to speak. You know, you're not shitheads in there destroying the property, and you're probably treating it like it's yours, and I'm sure that goes a long way with the landowner.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to go drive through bean fields or tearing stuff up. That doesn't help anybody. And for the future, if say you quit hunting it, that makes people not want to let guys on if you go driving through bean fields and stuff. That's why a lot of guys get no's is because of prior people doing bad things on properties.
Yeah.
100%. Golly. Well, Chad, man, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I'm so glad you got this buck down. Cool story, cool history. Great, your discipline paid off on him, and
that's probably the key to the whole thing. I mean, you worked hard to hone in on the area, yes, but a lot of people probably would have took pretty marginal shots through that period, and you waited, and it paid off. At the end there with the right shot, which is tough on a deer like that, not to just want to shoot straight down and, like you said, spine him or whatever, and just to get an arrow in him. But it worked out that you did wait.
He didn't go 60 yards. I mean, he took off running, and that's a creek due west of us. And he ran, and I don't know if you can tell in the footage or not, because I really haven't watched it back that closely, but he just ran off the shelf of the creek he didn't run down. He just kept running and then fell into the creek, and that's where he lay dead. So he was dead within 60, 70 yards. It was in seconds. I mean, it was quick.
It was,
and you see that immediate blood coming out.
Yeah,
so.
It was a great shot.
Because of my poundage, I will say this: I am extremely disciplined on the body angle of the deer before I will release an arrow. So I understand my shortcomings in that poundage. I know what my arrow can and will do if I hit my mark. So I take every precaution to make sure I hit my mark.
Yeah.
And I'm just very disciplined on body position, deer demeanor, and making sure that arrow can hit a broadside to slightly quartering away or slightly quartering to animal and get into that rib cage. I mean, that's what I'm striving for.
What did you sever when the arrow went in there?
Everything, man. It hit both lungs. I think it hit the aortic arch as well, because you don't get blood under pressure that quick without hitting that pump station right there. So both lungs were severed, and I had to have hit one of the main arteries right there.
Beautiful.
So a lot of times in past seasons, you'll have a storied history or a chase with a certain animal. Was this one where certainly you knew of him, but was there that kind of history involved with him, or just, hey, I know what deer he is, and they showed up and he finally was old enough and kind of had the headgear of somebody you're going to go after?
I've never encountered this deer before, so there's not a storied video history with him. We had trail pictures of him, and he was a big frame, big giant 8 last year with real tall tines. And then this year he just exploded. He was one of those deer that you look at him from year to year and you think, well, he's going to be another big 8 that's going to look like he does this year. But this one really grew. I mean, I would have guessed him last year at probably 155-ish, 160. Mm-hmm. And this year he's, in the mid 80s. So he put on a lot of inches and certainly grabbed our attention this year.
So when you see that, we had a young man on the podcast last week who killed that 232 up in the Unionville area. And, he thought that deer the year before that the neighbors, everybody kind of thought he was in the 60s, and he made that kind of a jump. Wow. I mean, a custom big leap would be 30, 40 inches, right? I mean, do you see much more beyond that a lot of times?
Not normally, no. I mean, here the last few years, we've been so dry, we've seen very few jumps. Most of the deer, frankly, have had, 1 to 5% increase. And, it's very rare to see a deer make a 10 or 20% increase, but that type of increase is almost unheard of. That's an anomaly, certainly. Yeah. A major anomaly.
Yeah, for sure. What were the G2s and 3s on your deer? Because they looked unbelievable. That's part of that frame you're talking about, but they look just crazy large.
The 2s were over a foot, and the 3s were in the mid 13s, as I recall.
Come on, Tim. I'd like my main beams to get
I would be happy with that also.
The beams were 26 and 4/8, if I recall. 24 and 6/8.
So
4/8.
Massive,
26 and 4/8. I said that wrong. 26 and 4/8.
Yeah, that's a deer that moves some water.
Yeah, well, when you sent the pictures to Dad and I that night, once you recovered him, well, I thought when you sent the screenshot of the shot, I thought, well, that's a big ass deer. And then you sent the pictures of him laying there, and I'm like, that's a big deer, but you don't get quite the idea of how big until you see a human holding the rack. You know what I mean? That's where it's like, holy shit.
You see it moving.
Yeah, like that's a big deer.
That body perspective. He was such a large bodied animal. You're used to looking at a deer that, might weigh live weight 210 to 250 pounds. So all of a sudden, when you look at one that's 300 or more, it doesn't have the perspective that a smaller body deer does in terms of their rack. So this deer was a gigantic body deer. I mean, he dwarfed every other deer we saw, and really he's dwarfed any deer I've seen this year. He was just really a big body deer. Coon dogs was like that in Missouri as well. Monstrous body for Missouri. And those big bodies shrink those racks down in terms of perspective until you get some other perspective like a hunter behind them.
Until next time, peace out, peace out, peace out.
See ya.
Until next time, peace out.
Where did that sound come from?
The rainbows. The skies.
DeerCast is completely updated and better than ever. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck with our detailed maps, weather, and 14-day movement predictor.
we're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.